Hello, hello, hello. Now I'm going to get back about why woke is a manufactured crisis. You see, one of my most favorite filmmakers is the British documentary filmmaker Richard Atkins, Richard Richard Curtis, Adam Curtis. I don't know. Forgive me. I think it's Adam Curtis, but in any case, this guy uses in one of his some of his source materials, the book from Noam Chomsky called The Manufacturing of Content. Now, I just want to say about Noam Chomsky that I think he's wrong about many things. He's much more clever, smarter, and more educated than me, but he has said so much that it becomes, you can't be right about everything. In any case, there are some things that are, however, that are basically a psychological operation, and I'm not saying this woke crisis is a psychological operation constructed by the KGB or the CIA. By the way, I know the KGB hasn't got a new name now, SFB or something, but I still call them the KGB because it's fun. Um, I know I am not saying that it's like some plot by the Americans or the Russians or the Chinese to divide society. I'm just saying it's weird that it has become such a massive, split between people being non woke and non woke. Like, it used to be just a difference between conservative, and liberal. And I remember, you know, um, I just come from a family and society where we had all these elements, and discussions were always very civil. Online as well. Like, you would have discussions about politics, but not the culture of politics, not this woke thing, which has now become what the so-called culture war. You know, culture for me is when you have things that are totally different, like your food, religion, like customs. These things are basically, this is culture. So woke isn't a culture. It's something different. And I think it may have appeared to be a culture when people started saying the same thing, like hashtag Me Too or hashtag Black Lives Matter or whatever, or hashtag Trans Pride. It may have appeared that these people are on the same side, but they never truly were. They're only on the same side in the sense that whatever they propose or want to do is rejected, roundly rejected. And this has made the appearance of a split in society. So for me to have this appear naturally, organically, is very strange. I think a large part of it has to do with social media, like the way people communicate and interact with each other, how they organize. Um, but you see, for me, it's very difficult to imagine how Black Lives Matter, hashtag Black Lives Matter. I'm talking about first, let's say some random street protest, then you have the social media amplification on Black Twitter, and then you have street protests. Some of those street protests turned violent. Um, this isn't a political movement. This isn't they don't want, they, in general, those people wanted one thing, just stop police brutality. They didn't want to, at that stage, teach your child who's 5 that they're inherent racist. Um, that's not how it happens. Now I know there are some woke people who do want to do that, but like there's a very small number of them. Like try go and count them. Like go and count the, and I'm not talking about some random person you find on the internet who means nothing, like me. I'm talking about actual thought leaders, people with actual power to change things, like in education, you know, um, in big business, in government, uh, leaders of massive NGOs who have the power to affect these change. They don't really talk about these things. So let's get back to the anatomy of a manufactured crisis. Step one: find a villain. Every good manufactured crisis needs a villain, preferably one that's hard to define but easy to hate. Enter woke. It's the perfect boogeyman because it's not a specific person or a group but an amorphous concept. It's broad enough to include everything from environmental activism to racial equity, but vague enough that critics can prompt whatever fears they have onto it. For example, a teacher incorporates a lesson on systematic racism. The woke mob is brainwashing our kids. Okay, one lesson. One lesson. Okay. Then freaking Fox will make it news for 3 days. Now, any one of you, even if you're 18, 19 years old, try to remember one lesson you had 2 years ago. Try to remember one. It's difficult, isn't it? Like, try to now, if you're 25, try to remember one lesson you had in high school. Now, if you're 40, try to remember one lesson you had in high school. Not like 20 seconds of it. Try to remember the entire lesson. You as a 40-year-old listener, try to remember the entire lesson you have had of any subject in high school. Not so easy, is it? Neither can I. So, you see, this is like teachers are also just people. Like now and then they make mistakes. Like a doctor will make mistakes. Like the next thing you know, you're like diagnosed with this, but no, it's misdiagnosis because like diseases can have so many symptoms that are similar. Taxi drivers make mistakes. Politicians make mistakes, maybe more than most of us. Like engineers make mistakes. So a teacher makes a mistake and then it gets pulled out of proportion, and then it's like not in this case like systemic racism. Then it's not necessarily about something that's been totally disproved. Remember, like when you're at school, they will teach you about many things, like right and wrong, because they have to give you a wrong example to show you like what it will look like if you do it. Like if you're teaching computer science, you want to use, like at one stage, you want to use the wrong, like, set of the wrong class or the wrong set of design concepts to show students what will happen if you do it this way rather than using it like the simple way, like whatever, or the elegant way. So you need to show people the wrong way as well. Teachers may do that. So and it's also the prerogative of the teacher to bring in his or her own life experience into the classroom. That's why teachers are hired, is because of life experience. So it's just ridiculous like that, you have one lesson by one teacher that they teach maybe, is one lesson out of like 50 classes of the year, and now this is a brainwashing. If you don't understand what brainwashing is, go and look on YouTube for brainwash. Just go and look at what brainwashing really is. I'm talking about North Korea. I'm talking about Heaven's Gate. I'm talking about like what's that other big cult? Um, there's like so any cult. Just go and look at any cult, and essentially, it's usually the same said. It's hard work. It's very hard work to brainwash someone. It's not the easy job. You can't brainwash someone in one class. So why this outrage about one class? You see, so it's basically it looks weird. Let's go on to the next example. A movie studio casts a transgender actor. Okay, Hollywood is bowing to the woke mob. Okay, so you see, when people like movies are pieces of art, sometimes it is made for consumption, for mass consumption. If you look at a Marvel movie, it's basically made for mass consumption. Something like Lord of the Rings is made for mass consumption. But quite often like in every one of us, you, the viewer included, there is an artist. Like an artist isn't this special person with a cigarette and this funny hat, like drinking wine at the French cafe and reading like French philosophy. Like, no, that's not an artist. The artist can be so many different things. Like if a 3-year-old child paints a green picture using only the paint green, and they paint something that you can't even figure out what it is, that is still art. Like, so movie makers will do things in the movie what they want to, including a transgender person, and there are transgender people, and because of the laws of equality or laws of non-discrimination, you have to like no, not I mean you don't have to, but in the case of movies, but I mean like you may have funders, like someone funding your movie, because like producing, just go and watch what's the movie? This is movie about the Godfather, how it was produced, and just the way it was very interesting. It was a series, I think. Yeah, like how the guy needs to go and find money to produce the movie Godfather, and you'd think it would be easy to produce a movie like Godfather because Mario Puzo wrote it. It wasn't easy producing the movie Godfather. It was very difficult, and like you may have a funder that basically tells you, "Can you please put a transgender person in?" Or in this production process of this movie is so big that maybe the best person to cast is a transgender person, because for this role they're the best. So like now in Squid Game as well, like they could have, well it turned out the transgender person was actually a straight person, and like, or not the transgender person, and that caused additional outrage. But like, I mean, that is one of the reasons, like Squid Game 2 worked. Like, go and look at the ratings, is because they casted the transgender person. So the same with Mr. Robot, the boogie person, the boogie man, the boogie transgender person was what was his name again? Her name again? White Lotus, White Rose. I think it was, yeah, it was White Rose. Like Mr. Robot. Like, no one complained. By the way, no one complained when, and Mr. Robot is an old series. Like, no one complained when, like, White Rose was transgender in Mr. Robot. And Mr. Robot, like, will go down in history as this fantastic series. Like, sometimes it just calls for, like, if you're like making stew and the recipe calls for red wine, if the recipe calls for red wine, you should add red wine. You don't need to add red wine, but maybe you should. It will make a good pairing, you see, because we are human. Art is an expression of humanity. So, and all of these other people, like gay people, black people, women, transgender people, autistic people, people with disability, people with mental illnesses. These are all native peoples. These are all people like who are part of this humanity, who's part of the greater expression of it, and they therefore should be captured in art. So, one more expression. A university discusses pronouns. Now they're erasing biology. So you see, like, it's difficult. It's not just difficult being a professor on a conservative professor being on a liberal campus, as it's painted to be, that these people are inherently like, being attacked, and they were. But the converse is also true. If you are a liberal educator and you just happen to say one thing wrong at the wrong time, people want to crucify you. If you just have an English class and you're discussing pronouns, and as a lecturer or a teacher, somehow along the line, someone in your class will address a transgender person who may be very sensitive about how they are addressed. It's better to tell people how to prepare them for such a situation, so that they know how to react in an appropriate way. Like, as I said, that person, that transgender person, that black person, they may not necessarily be a random stranger in the gym or in the supermarket or wherever you go. It may be a boss. It may be a big client. It may be a coworker. So it may be a doctor. It may be, the only doctor that can operate on your quadruple bypass because you are always stressed out about everything woke. You see, you're being taught pronouns like this, maybe just in case you end up in such a situation. Then there is like a war on the children, you see. 2, exaggerate the problem. Once you have your villain, you need to make them look as scary as possible. This is where exaggeration and cherry picking come into play. A single story about high school banning certain books becomes schools are banning everything that's not woke. Here are some real life examples. Oh yeah, by the way, do you know banned books? The apartheid government. And the Soviet Union, and like Maoist China. Here are some real life examples. The Mr. Potato Head scandal. In 2021, Hasbro announced it would rebrand Mr. Potato Head as simply Potato Head to make the toy line more inclusive. Outrage headlines screamed they're cancelling Mr. Potato Head. The reality, Hasbro still sells Mr. Potato Head, it's just added more options to the product line. That's easy. All you do is you program in a little different set of things on the assembly line. It creates one more product. It doesn't destroy the existing product. It adds one. That's all it does. Second example, the Dr. Seuss controversy. Critics claimed woke culture was cancelling Dr. Seuss when the author's estate decided to stop publishing 6 lesser-known books due to racist imagery. The estate made this decision independently, but the outrage machine turned it into wokeness gone mad. You see, yeah, with regards to Dr. Seuss, I grew up with Dr. Seuss. I can't recall any I didn't read probably all of his books. I remember Green Ham and Green Eggs. It was so weird. The thing is, like, Dr. Seuss, to a certain extent, is the Salvador Dali of children's books, and like the real life Salvador Dali, it's a magnificent person. He created fantastic works of art, but there's some problematic aspects. Like Salvador Dali was he called General Franco a genius, or he was a big fan of General Franco. So imagine I am a big fan of Adolf Hitler, and I tell you that on YouTube, they will either take down my channel, or like someone will try to ruin me or something like that. Now, but it's because I'm not a great artist. Like Salvador Dali was a great artist, and the same with whoever drew and wrote Dr. Seuss. However, now you're in the situation where the artist passes away, and their work now has to be curated by their estate or their association or foundation. It's much like the Nelson Mandela Foundation in South Africa, where like with the Desmond Tutu Foundation in South Africa, where it's a new set of people, and they will try to look at, let's say, Nelson Mandela's best principles or his best characteristics or examples, and they would try to like market that or embody that or encapsulate that or store that or curate that or take care of it. And the same goes for Dr. Seuss. So obviously Dr. Seuss is old. It comes from the 30s or the 40s. So obviously there's going to be problematic, some it's like Tintin. There's going to be some racist stuff or whatever. Like, so, and it may not necessarily be something you want your grandchildren to read, because like they are in, let's say, a multiracial school. So essentially, this foundation looks at everything Dr. Seuss has done, and says, okay, if the artist was still alive, maybe these books he would not have approved of if he knew the full extent of the society. And that's what they do. So then these people do it, but then what, let's say, 6 people on a board of directors did, gets like projected onto like 20% of all other society on earth. How is that possible? You see, it's not possible. So once again, manufactured outrage. So these stories thrive on misinformation. The goal isn't to inform, it's to enrage. By cherry-picking extreme examples or misrepresenting facts, critics manufacture the illusion of widespread crisis. So, yeah, it's just it's this widespread crisis thing. I don't think it's a crisis, and basically that's why I'm making this video. It's just like, I think woke has gone too far, and then the converse is very true. Anti-woke has gone too far as well, where this thing has now outlived its usefulness, and you should trust people. You should trust like publishers, movie makers, teachers, whoever, not to push ideologies, because quite often that's not what people are trying to do. Like, is push ideology. I try not to push ideology. Well, I'm fallible. I'm a human being. Of course, like, I am biased, but you see, like, all people are fallible. So I think there shouldn't be this like froth in the mouth outrage, like for people who misspeak now and then, or who basically do something that they think is well intentioned, but let's say is something you're not ready to hear or you misinterpret it. So you see, there has to be a limit to outrage, like where we say, okay, these are the facts, let's deal with the facts. Step 3, repeat it until it sticks. Once the narrative is set, it's repeated endlessly. News outlets, social media, and politicians amplify the message until it feels inescapable. This repetition gives the illusion of consensus. If everyone is talking about the woke crisis, it must be real, right? The tactic has been used for decades. During the Red Scare of the 1950s, communists were blamed for everything from Hollywood scripts to labor strikes. Today, wokeism serves in the same function, allowing critics to lump unrelated issues into one terrifying package. Yeah, this is like it reminds me of that letterbox. Any one of you who've studied or have read enough about woke will know the story. It's hilarious. Like, essentially, they came the story into the media. When I first heard it as well, I thought it was disgusting and weird. Like someone, self-identifying as a furry. Now, for those of you who don't know what, I actually don't exactly know what the furries. I think a furry is someone who may or who may not necessarily sexually or non-sexually identify as basically a fur animal, like a rabbit, and then they exemplify by wearing a rabbit onesie, like a rabbit onesie with like makeup or whatever, or a cat. All cats are always popular. And then they pretend they're cats. Now, what exactly this is? If this is just like fun cosplay for some, I think it's many things. I think for some people it's just like fun cosplay, like, oh, look at me, I'm a cat, meow. And for other people, it's like, look at me, I'm a cat, meow. So I think it exists on, there's many kinds of furries. I think like people in this example, people were thinking about the sex furry. So apparently, like a kid in some US like primary school or something identified as a cat and wanted the sandbox to take a shit in. And it turned out like, this was repeated everywhere. Like Fox took it and it ran with it along with all of the other right-wing news media companies. It was repeated, I believe. I don't know if it was repeated in US Congress, if it went up that high, but it went high. Many politicians believed it until it turned out it wasn't true. It turned out this never happened. So you see, this is like, this is, and it took a while. It stuck so well that they couldn't get rid of it. Probably there are still people who believe in it, because if you repeat the lie long enough, people will believe it. Probably there's still people who believe in it. Step 4, monetized outrage. Now comes the fun part, making money off the fear you have created. The anti-woke industry is a gold mine. Books, podcasts, YouTube channels, and merchandise all capitalize on this hysteria. Politicians fundraise off promises to fight woke culture, and media outlets rake in clicks with sensationalist headlines. Yeah, this is insane, eh? Like the amount of... I want to do a video about the amount of some research about some far-right YouTube podcasters, because it's scary. This is why I've decided to become a moderate podcaster, because like what the left do is scary, but like what the right do is often scarier. These days, it comes in cycles, right? Like maybe 10 years from now, the left will be scarier again. But like right now, the right is scarier. But like the stuff they come up with, you get good ones, like the ones like who are uh, really good. No, I'm not going to say names, but like let's say some of the ones who are really good, who are basically they still try to do some fact. They're right leaning. Yeah, I don't actually have a problem with right leaning people, and I don't have a problem with left leaning people. That's natural. But people who once you start talking about replacement theory, and then these things like replacement theory, I don't even want to. Oh, maybe I should go down that rabbit hole to see what they're talking about. I'll probably have to go to very scary places, but like I think one now and then one should like investigate what crazy people, or we call them crazy, what extremist people are up to on both the left and the right wing of the spectrum, because you want to know, like, what are Antifa up to, what are the Proud Boys up to. So if there is like civil strife, that you and your family can be safe. Getting back to money. Take Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, for example. His anti-woke agenda isn't just rhetoric. It's a branding strategy. By positioning himself as the anti-woke crusader, he appeals to voters who feel alienated by societal change. Then there's the media. Outrage generates engagement, which means more ad revenue. Every time you click on an article decrying woke madness, you're feeding into a lucrative cycle of fear and profit. Yeah, like the media is the way the media like portrays like woke is ridiculous. Like you can't just say woke madness and woke crisis left, right, and center. Like you have to sometimes like take a do it as this decision, and like take the scalpel and go deeper and find exactly, okay, this person or that organization, these are their motives, this is why they want to do it, this is what they did. Is that what they did legal? Like, is it ethical or not? Like, if it is ethical, that they make money from it? These are the questions one should ask. But like the media often just try to get clicks. Like, I don't know if that's the best way to like, inform people. Step 5, distract from the real issues. Here's the kicker. While everyone's arguing about wokeness, real problems go unaddressed. The obsession with woke culture serves as a smokescreen, distracting from issues that actually matter, like economic inequality. Billionaires are getting richer while wages stagnate. But sure, let's focus on gender-neutral bathrooms. Climate change. Our planet is literally burning, but the real crisis is a drag queen reading to children. Healthcare. A million of people can't afford basic medical care. But okay, let's talk about wokeism. It's ruining M&Ms. So, yeah, I feel, healthcare and climate change and education is very important. Personally, I feel economic inequality is very important, the most important. Even Elon Musk. Elon Musk is way richer than the second richest guy. So isn't it strange that all of these things are happening, while, while we're being entertained by these anti-woke like articles in the newspaper. It's like Rome is burning and we're eating M&Ms. The emotional manipulation behind the crisis. What makes the woke crisis so effective is its emotional appeal. Fear, anger, and resentment are powerful motivators. By framing wokeism as a threat to traditional values, critics taps into feelings of nostalgia and loss. Think about their erasing history, appeals to the fear of losing cultural heritage. The woke mob is silencing free speech, taps into anxiety about censorship. Wokeness is ruining everything, speaks to a sense of personal grievance. So, yeah, um, the people, this woke crisis, this manufactured woke crisis, if it was that simple, you could, like, let's say the Eminem nonsense or the transgender person reading to children. If that media article was written in any different way, if the communications done around it was done using a different lens, or a different intent, they wouldn't have. Would have never heard about it. So you are being emotionally manipulated t- to keep this, like, this woke crisis going. That's exactly what's happening, and, like, fear of losing your cultural heritage, really, like, that is very difficult. Like, look, cultures change all the time, and sometimes they do lose some things. Like, I mean, German Americans can no longer speak German. Italian Americans can no longer speak Italian. However, like, you have the hamburger, that's American German cuisine. Like, you have, like, pizza, that's Italian American cuisine. Some aspects of the culture, the good aspects, always will survive. Um, and yeah, it is, like, very difficult to destroy a culture. It's not that easy. Like, when South Africa was colonized, they tried to eradicate several cultures. It didn't really work, because there was too much resistance. So if an empire, if the British Empire couldn't erase these South African cultures, how can, like, a man with pink hair reading a book to your kid destroy your culture? How is that possible? If the United States couldn't destroy the Navajo Nation, how can, like, how can a single person, like, running an ad campaign for sweets, or, a person drinking a Bud Light, on a YouTube video, how can a person drinking a Bud Light on a YouTube video destroy a culture? Like, that means the only way you'll stop drinking Bud Light is if Bud Light wasn't a good product to start off with. So yeah, it is. That's the cultural aspect. Then, with regards to free speech, people with anxiety about censorship are people who have never really been censored themselves. If you're from Europe, or if you're from North America, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, no, not even Japan is a bit more conservative. There is censorship, but if you're from one of these societies, you don't know what censorship is. With all due respect, like, in South Africa, we had serious censorship during the apartheid era. Like, China has serious censorship on its internet. Russia has serious censorship everywhere, TV, internet, on the streets, you name it. That's censorship. It is not like, it is not what you think it is. And essentially, many people are against censorship because they want to be racist. They want to say something racist or something semi-racist, like black people is blah 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 blah, and they want to say that with freedom and without any impediment. And now, like, if you tell them, look, you can't say this, you have been warned on social media, then basically they get upset about it. But the bottom line is, the only reason you feel that way is because white Americans, for example, are 60% of the population. African Americans are what, 10% of the population. Let's turn it around. Let's say 60% of America's population were African American and 10% of America's population were Caucasian, white. Like, the white people then, as a minority, would be much more vocal about what black people can or cannot say, because now they will feel even more threatened. So if you feel threatened as a majority, you have a problem. Like, you need to really basically look at, you really have to, like, analyze yourself. Why does it work? The woke crisis works because it's simple, emotionally charged, and endlessly adaptable. You can blame almost everything on it, from declining church attendance to your favorite superhero movie flopping. More importantly, it's an effective way to divide people. By framing progress as a zero-sum game, critics pit different groups of people against each other. If people are too busy fighting over wokeness, they are less likely to unite against systemic injustices. So, yeah, like, this movie bombing thing as well. It's so stupid. Like, I am, what do you call it, a movie file. I love watching movies and TV series. If you're, like, really a dedicated fan, you basically accept how the artist produces it. Like, much like if you, and I'm a big steak person as well. Like, if you go to one of them really fancy steakhouses, you go because you love steak, okay? And you're gonna ask it for, let's say, you're gonna ask steak, like, in the rare way, okay? As most steak lovers do. People who eat well done steak are infidels. I'm joking. Essentially, like, your steak will not be exactly made the way you make your steak. It will be slightly different, okay? But there's no reason to cancel your order, okay? Like, once a thing comes and it's like 2% or 5% different than the way you eat it, canceling your order just means you're an asshole. So let's just be clear here as well. I'm trying to show as much empathy to people who view this as that there is an existential woke crisis. Like, because I know, just by watching this video, some of you will accuse me of being woke myself, and I am not woke. I try not to be. Maybe I am. I don't. No, I'm not woke. Like, you see, and it's not just that it will happen to me. It will happen to freaking anyone creating a video. Like, it will fall short of someone's super high anti-woke cultural expectations, and then that person will be branded, and then there will also be people who will say, oh, like, how dare you insult like woke people, or you don't have you don't have the lived experience to make this video. Well, to all of you, like, I don't care, like, I will say this, and the reason I'm saying this is because I'm being manipulated. You are being manipulated. We are all being manipulated, and it's because of this. Like, it's like this freaking. It's this freaking manufactured crisis, and they're deriving money from it. They're deriving money from the anti woke thing, and they're using tools. They're using mind tools to basically to make you fall for this. That's all for now. Thank you very much. Bye bye.